Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Wednesday night. It is the Earthmaster out here, about 10:08 p.m. California time. Still New Year's, January 1st, 2025 is the date. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 1.6 into the Alaska area. Covering California activity here first because we are noticing a little bit of increasing movement here across the west coast. Down here along the San Jacinto fault zone, getting some earthquake activity in the last hour. Nothing big. Looks like some low-grade 2s and a couple other 1s in there as well, but also getting a little bit of migration here up towards the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, following this swarming down here across the Imperial area. This pretty much died off about 9:30 in the morning, but it looks as though through the afternoon and whatnot, we're starting to notice some further escalation of the quakes up the plate boundary here, where a 2.7 struck this morning and a later 1.1 in the same area. Of course, we don't really want to see earthquake activity in that zone. That's pretty much the area that has been locked and loaded for quite a while in terms of accumulated strain. The southern branch of the San Andreas Fault has not seen a big earthquake in over 300 years, the southern segment here. So this is definitely the area to avoid any type of nearby neighborly earthquakes here. So continue to watch that. Some clustering going on here across this area of the interchange here between a couple different faults off the plate boundary. Got quite a bit of smaller microquake activity out there. As far as 2.5 and above, there's those number of earthquakes there on the Imperial Fault and that 2.7 off the San Andreas Fault there. Los Angeles area, scattered earthquake activity, really nothing of any noteworthy value there for now. Ridgecrest area starting to fill in, it looks like, here around the China Lake area. Let's see, seismograph stations here around China Lake. Not seeing too much activity. A little spike, it looks like, and also one on Petrolia, Northern California. Bay Area of California, pretty quiet aside from this 4.7 earthquake that struck here earlier this evening. I kind of want to explain what all this activity is. There's a bunch of geothermal stations out here that tap into the heated areas below the surface, and they create power here. There's a whole process by injecting material down below to create some type of dry steam, which powers many homes out there across the Bay Area. And of course, it is, obviously active volcanic activity down below, but this 4.7 is a somewhat of a decent sized earthquake compared to the typical earthquake activity we see out here. Mainly 2s and 1s and occasional 3s out here, but a 4.7 is kind of up there in terms of magnitude level. I did not feel this earthquake outside the region there. It was limited to the coast range around Santa Rosa area. Looks like San Francisco felt that 4.7 as well. Now, I don't know why they're even including an aftershock forecast here, because it's not like this area hasn't seen earthquake activity here every single day for the past, whenever they started these operations. But they put out an aftershock forecast for a 3+, 41%. And I don't really necessarily think this is associated with fault systems here. This is associated with hydrothermal plants here. We zoom in, you can see a lot of these quakes here stirring up today within feet of these geothermal plants here. There's a number of them, probably 15 or 20 of them in the area of Cobb Mountain. The 4.7 struck over here off the area. Very shallow earthquake activity here lately, just below the surface. But who knows if they built maybe some more geothermal plants since this image was taken. But it does sit up here a couple thousand feet away from one of the near ones down here. So there's just, I was down there a couple years ago investigating the area because I wanted to see what was down there. And there's just secured areas all over the place. I understand why, right? Because it's a power source. But there's, like I said, there's 15 or 20 different geothermal plants down here. And apparently they know what they're doing. If you think about poking holes into a volcano, apparently, nothing's going to happen according to the people that have information on this. The magma area below is not like Hawaii, so to speak, the liquidy type stuff. I guess this area here is just a more thicker magma chamber down below, but not quite as the texture-wise, as far as like Hawaii and Iceland, for example. So, but from what I know, it seems a little sketchy, right? Poking holes all over the crust, and eventually, if you fill all those in there, you got earthquakes all over the place. How many more pinholes can you poke here in the surface? So apparently, these guys know what they're doing. Hopefully, in terms of not starting up a volcano out there, or stirring up a volcano, maybe creating a new area here. Went back and looked at the last number of years out here in terms of larger earthquake activity. I went back as far as I could on the USGS catalog book for 4.5 and above, since records have been kept out here. There's today's 4.7, nearby a 5.0 back in 2016. So it's got to do with the geothermal operations out here as well. 4.5, 2014, 2006. So they do happen, but most of the earthquakes have happened since. Now there might be some fault systems down here off of the Makama fault, it looks like. And there's a number of, little bitty faults out here associated with Mount Konocti there in the Clear Lake volcanic field. But these earthquakes are not related to stress or strain in terms of volcanic activity. As far as magma chamber accumulation, it's not like that. But it's interesting because I just hope these guys know what they're doing. Let me see how many earthquakes we've had. 105 today. A number more, obviously, following that 4.7. Seems like things have really stirred up out here, but not around where the 4.7 struck. Mostly around the area here to the west, very close to these geothermal plants out here. And, I've been watching this for a long time. I really don't cover it all the time, but when we see a lot of earthquake activity and elevated movement, I try to focus on it a lot. But I want everyone to know that this earthquake activity here is very common. This is nothing new in terms of the multitude of quakes. As sometimes we see 300 or 400 earthquakes a day in this area in the past. This is just the last 30 days, 1,164. Now, this is nothing new. If you go back every single month since these operations began, I don't know when. It's been a number of years, obviously. They've added more geothermal plants, but this is, it's not escalating to anything. It's just occasional larger quake activity that does take place out there. And I don't know if I have any way to check the GPS out here. Let me see. Lakeport, Clear Lake, Cobb Mountain. Well, yeah, this ain't really going to help out too much. This is somewhat nearby. This is a GPS stations here showing vertical and different movement here. Here's the vertical displacement. A little bit of upwards turn there back in 2013, but it's gone down. And if you look at 2024, there's a lot of run times here that are more down, indicating a deflationary in the area. At least that's where this seismograph station is located. So we're not seeing any type of big time swelling, but they don't have anything right around the Cobb Mountain area. A little bit further to the southeast, still deflation. But yeah, there's some heated areas down below, and earthquake activity does happen out there. And if we were to go back, throughout the year last year, I can only imagine how many earthquakes. We'll you know what? Let's check that real quick. I don't want to crash my computer. Let's see here. Let's just go back from 2023, the end of 2023, up to today's time period here. I just kind of want to see. I want to get a number, and it's going to be overwhelming. Watch. It's probably going to be up around, who knows, 20 or 30,000 earthquakes. See if I'm right on that. And we're just going to cover this little area where the Cobb Mountain area is at and the hydrothermal plants are located. Ready? Here we go. Let's see what happens here. Oh, it shouldn't take too long, I don't think. Well, okay, wow. I was overestimating a little bit. But some years there has been more. You know, we did a little comparison in terms of earthquake activity worldwide, 2024 versus 2023, and we're 1,500 earthquakes less of magnitude 4.5 and above compared to 2023. So we actually seen less earthquake activity in 2024 than we did in 2023. 1,500 earthquakes less. So there we are, 15,000 earthquakes there, roughly during the 2024 period around the Clear Lake volcanic field, and that's a lot of poking holes here, right? You know, hopefully this whole area doesn't give away, but I'm not specifically well knowledgeable on the exact operations down here. You know, I wanted to go down there and do a little tour of the area, but I never got back down in this area. But it's an interesting process, and it does create earthquakes there, folks. So hopefully they don't get much bigger, and hopefully these guys know what they're doing in terms of, you know, the poking holes there. Let's see. So we got that. Nevada is still seeing some earthquake activity. Western Nevada. Cascadia subduction zone up here. 2 earthquakes today. Let's check out the tremor map here this evening. Cascadia tremor. And we got, wow, 9 epicenters here of tremor around the southern Oregon area, southern coast of Oregon. So not a whole lot of tremor activity there along the Cascadia subduction zone in the last couple days. Minimal activity, but occasionally we'll see these little small earthquakes. Well, it's already past the time chart here, but we'll see periodic small earthquakes and nothing being reported out here. So there's still somewhat consistent activity, but for now it looks like the focus is mainly on Southern California in terms of, you know, the movement. It seems like it bounces back and forth. When Northern California is active, it's quiet down here. Sometimes we'll see the whole West Coast active. So, I mean, 4.7, I don't, like I say, I don't think it's associated with fault strain out here because it's in the region of the hydrothermal plants. I just think it's an area that they hit, and it was just a little bit more energy that produced that earthquake there in the region. But anyway, we'll definitely continue to watch that. Some movement there underneath Lake Almanor. Mount Lassen pretty quiet up there. Mount Shasta as well. Beautiful volcanoes there in Northern California. One little earthquake outside Mount Hood. Actually, it's right at the summit area. But a little 0.9, nothing big. But let's go check that out real quick, see if we're not missing something up there around Mount Hood. We'll check out this seismograph station here, see what we have. At the top of Palmer Lift. That may show outside interference. Yeah, not really. I don't even know where that earthquake's at. 14:51 UTC time, so that was earlier this afternoon. That would be on this, well, one of these images here, but I don't really see anything of any. Maybe that earthquake right here, that's maybe going to be that small spike, but aside from that, there's really nothing going on there across that volcano. Pretty quiet there. Beautiful volcano. Mount Rainier up there, a couple earthquakes as well, but stretching out here across this area, Yellowstone National Park, nothing showing up, but I do want to verify that. I just want to make sure. One earthquake, maybe 1 or 2 earthquakes here. See if you guys can spot what I'm pointing out right here. Another one. Those are definitely well-defined, localized earthquakes, but it is the new year, and it's a holiday. So there's A lot of times the smaller earthquake activity does not get reported because the USGS is out of the office. We'll probably get to it tomorrow and hopefully add that up on the map. But there's really nothing big going on there across Yellowstone for now. Up in the beautiful state of Nebraska, little 3.0 near Brownlee, Nebraska. Not too often do we see earthquakes up here, but there is fault systems, and it is somewhat seismically active in terms of U.S. hazard potential around various faults here across the northern plains region. This earthquake about 3 miles deep underneath the area, out in the middle of nowhere. Hey, that sounds good to me. Been eyeballing Nebraska here for a little while. I know there's nothing out there, but that's the whole purpose. Well, looks like a few folks are out there. They felt it, but nothing big going on there for now. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of potential in terms of large-scale activity out there. Now, that's a different story here across the New Madrid seismic zone, but it's pretty quiet. Nothing showing up on the USGS map. And we can also check here the seismograph stations in that area. Let's see if I can find it. I have hundreds upon hundreds of these bookmarks. I know I need to probably go through them and organize them, but man, that seems like a lot of work. So here's the New Madrid seismic zone, well covered, well documented in terms of seismograph station coverage. We can just check out any one of these and see what's going on here. Well, it looks like it's updated in terms of UTC, but I'm really not seeing anything showing up here in the last couple hours in terms of earthquake activity. Pretty quiet. The USGS been pretty good at mentioning these earthquakes when they happen out there across that region. That's an area that's seen some upper sevens back in 1811, 1812. And these intraplate earthquakes can get rather large. And it's been, over 200 and something years since that series of earthquakes struck. A lot has changed out here. Population density has grown quite tremendously. Let's see here. Definitely a noticeable amount of earthquake activity south here of the equator recently. Although some of those are a little bit older. Newer activity down there across Chile is expected following this divergent boundary movement here recently, putting a strain on the Peru-Chile Trench. Nothing big going on there for now. South of New Zealand, 5.5. That's way south there. That's going to be, let's see where that's at. It looks like it's going to be close to the triple point boundary here between the Antarctica plate, the Pacific plate, and the Australia plate down here, which there's a number of dynamic areas here. New Zealand's been rocking and rolling a little bit. 4.4 earthquake there yesterday. Some movement up north as well. Still a little concerned, obviously, with the Hikurangi subduction zone. Although, who knows exactly when that's going to take place. New Zealand is a hot spot for large earthquake activity potential. So there's that 5.5 around the triple point area. Some newer, larger activity here with a 5-pointer south of the Philippines into the Indonesia Islands region. Japan area pretty quiet. Not a whole lot happening up there across the northern area of the Pacific plate for now. A handful of earthquakes there across eastern Afghanistan region, it looks like. Mediterranean fairly quiet. Ethiopia, let's see if we got anything else going on there. It's been a whole bunch of earthquake activity here in the rift boundary, the Great Valley Rift. Looks like the last one there was a 4.2, so things are still quite active out there. We've seen a good handful of earthquakes out here, 45 earthquakes of decent magnitudes here, above 4.5 in the last week. And it's not really localized to one area. This is kind of a broad-scale region here, which makes me think that it's something other than just a small amount of magma into the area. I think it's something a little bit larger, but just got to get a little bit more information on that and see what takes place. Let's see here. There's that newer earthquake into the Peru-Chile Trench, 4.8. San Antonio de los Cobres, Argentina. Pretty deep there, 121 miles there into that subduction zone. The big island of Hawaii. A couple of smaller earthquakes out there, but really nothing big. Let's go ahead and give a... Well, this was earlier, the Kilauea volcano. Let's see what we got right now. Still beautiful. Some fountaining going on there across that localized area around the crater wall of Kilauea volcano, lava lake area. Starting to fill it up. This could go on for, like I mentioned, for some time. It's definitely filling up the area. It's got a little ways to go before it starts to flow over. But this should continue for a little while. I base that on the deformation data here in the last year or so. We've had a number of eruptions there across the lower the southwest rift zone and then the middle east rift zone recently, but it really did nothing in terms of depleting the volume of magma that's been accumulated in the area. There's a couple of short-lived eruptions that I mentioned, but we're so high up here in terms of overall inflation, and it should continue for a little bit. Obviously, we're going down with the current activity steadily. So just kind of see what happens here, see how long it lasts. Definitely a very active volcano. Space weather activity here real quick, see what's going on. Yeah, look at that. This is still offline from yesterday or so. I don't know what's going on. It's not the solar ham site. It's got something to do with the NASA website. So, of course, they're going to be out of office, right? So they probably are not really concerned about this, the updated imagery. But we did have a decent amount of storming there with the KP index up around the 8 range. So G4 class storm was observed. And that was earlier this morning. Since then, it looks like we've gone back down. So things are subsiding, so to speak, out there. Could see some unsettled conditions there through the night, but that is not correct here. This is an older image. Still have a number of flares or a number of sunspots out there that can produce some stronger flaring. Still have a 10% chance there of some X-flare activity. M-flare 80, C-flare around 99% chance. And an active area out here on the northeastern limb of the sun that we're watching as well is currently flaring. Those active areas that produced numerous M-flares here recently are out of sight, out of mind off the western limb. Looks like we have some coronal hole activity here. And I was looking at this region here, a number of sunspots, but it looks like that's kind of fading off a little bit. Hard to tell, though, in terms of complexity, because our complexity model is just, this is recent. This is definitely a recent image, but I'm used to the beautiful colored image here where we can actually define the complexity with these colors here of the magnetic structure of the sunspots. But this here really doesn't do anything here. But we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Right now it's really not doing anything, but it does have potential. There's a number of those coronal holes here that are currently facing Earth. Giant one, 05. That is going to be lining up here with Earth, I believe, right now. This is the latest imagery. And that should provide some aurora amplification here down the road here in a couple days once the high-speed solar wind stream reaches the planet. Nothing like what we've seen here recently with the G4 storm, but it could enhance the auroras here after about 48, 72 hours or so. Let's see what else we got. Anything major for weather outlook? Actually, everything's quiet. Look at that. And we're expecting a little bit more rain out here in Northern California here this week. Nothing big, but we'll take it because after that, things start to really dry out here in the West Coast. And that alters the pattern out here across the rest of the country. Talking about ice storms, snow, severe weather potential here over the next couple weeks. This is a GFS model showing snow down, of course, into Kansas. Ice here across Missouri area, it looks like. That's going to be an interesting event here because that cold air even goes lower as we head a little bit deeper into January, way down south here around the Gulf of Mexico, where they could see some ice down there in Louisiana. Yikes. And that's just it looks like it's going to be a pattern here for a little bit. I'm hoping it changes because when we see that dip here across the area, that normally means west coast ridging. And I am not a fan of the high pressure. So hopefully that gets out of here and we get our rain back here, because January should be one of our wetter months out here across the west coast. Definitely don't want to dip into any drought conditions out here. We've seen obviously some decent rainfall so far this winter, but if we just automatically see no more, well, that may not be good. The current drought conditions out here across the states for the just the top surface level compared to the deeper levels here, roughly about the same. California, Northern California right now, not in a drought, but Southern California hasn't even had a drop of rain this year, I don't think, as far as our rainy season goes. So that is not good news for those guys. I know it's a La Nina pattern or neutral. It's probably around the neutral range here, Enso neutral. And that can go either way. It can mean storminess up here in Northern California with chances of rain down here in Southern California. But it's just been completely skipping them recently here. The moisture anomaly here, my backyard is still pretty soaked, even into the deeper levels here. We still have a lot of green on the board, indicating that substantial moisture content there in the ground. Southern California, not so good. That's in the deeper levels and the surface areas here across Los Angeles region. And of course, pretty wet out there. I mean, we've had a little bit of sunshine, but it's holding steady there in terms of the moisture. Everything's starting to turn green out here, and that's good news. Anyway, folks, let's see here. Anything else going on here? Again, Happy New Year to everyone. Man, I'm going to be busy mailing out Earthmaster pins and decals. Got quite the overwhelming response, and that's okay. Missy Mimi's is going to help me out. We're going to get a bunch of envelopes here. We're going to be mailing out decals and pins to the ones that emailed me and asked for them. I have no issue mailing them out, and they're free of charge. So we will be sending out that. Pretty certain I should have enough Earthmaster pins there, but we'll be getting those out early, sometime early next week, and I'll send an email to those that message me, letting them know when I sent it out, and to look forward to it there in a couple days when it arrives. So we're gonna be pretty busy. All right, folks, I'm out of here. Have a good day. Little spike of an earthquake, or good night, I should say, right? 10:36. I'm a little tired. I didn't really sleep all that good last night. A lot of fireworks going off, 3, 4 in the morning, even some during the day today. It's, man, consistent. China Lake, little earthquake there. I believe that's showing up. It's going to be, looks like that 2.1 here at 22:22 UTC time. That matches up here with 06:22. Well, this is going to be local time here, but this is UTC time. So a little bit of movement stirring up there in Southern California. Like I say, it's this elevated activity right now appears to be focused around the San Andreas Fault. So we got to watch it and just be prepared, because like I say, when it happens, folks, it's going to be a big one out here. And they're expecting maximum magnitude here is going to be an 8.1 for the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. And there's a number of fault systems out here that are overdue around Los Angeles as well. So when things start to get on the uptick here, just got to be on guard. And watching this area down here, because that's a decent amount of broad swarming across an area that we don't want to see it again. I mean, that's just... don't really want to see any activity there, because that could trigger something. All right, folks, have yourself a good night. Again, Happy New Year's, and we'll catch you guys back out here tomorrow, which is Thursday. Have a good one.